This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like yourselves worldwide. And the best part is that it's completely free. So sign up today at www.bonsai.film/subscribe. It takes just a few seconds. And once you sign up, you'll get our next newsletter on Friday morning. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives just like yourself. That's www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights for free. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley, and with me today is my good friend and Make It podcast co-host, Nicholas Buggs. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast, and this is an Indie Talk week, and that means I have my good friend and co-founder with me, Nicholas Buggs. Nick, say hello.
Hello. We're doing it again. What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. What's up with you?
Everything. Like that's just the name of the game. Is like I'm happy to be here because I like doing this with you, because this is like, after all the hats that we wear, you know, you got the dad hat, the husband hat, the working hat, the landscape hat, the Kendall Roy hat. Mm-hmm. It's like all the hats that you wear. Sometimes it's nice to put this hat on, which is just us doing this thing, talking about the indie film community, waxing poetic, having a good time as friends. Like, I love it, man. I look forward to it.
Here. Agreed. And likewise. And we will talk about HBO today. Speaking of Kendall Roy.
There you go.
Was formerly called HBO. So we're going to cover a couple of things around streaming. One, this Wall Street Journal report that says that 49% of streaming subscriptions have gone down since this time, 2022. Talk about that, the impact it'll have on filmmakers and just society in general and why it's happening. We're going to talk about this HBO brand change, right? Going from HBOMax to just Max. And one has to wonder, why not just go HBO? Oh, we did that in the 80s. Well, that's old. That's old hat. Okay. That's another hat. That's old hat.
Yep. There you go. Old hat.
Yeah. And then some advice we got from a conversation we had with an incredible filmmaker and talent manager earlier this week, and some ideas around financing, what a filmmaker should be looking for in terms of, or what a financer should be looking for, I should say, in terms of their filmmakers, in terms of their artifacts, like what they're creating, what's most important, and then what a filmmaker should be doing and how they should be behaving if they want to have investments in the future. And then, of course, we will have a culture check.
Culture check.
This one's a little sensitive culture check.
Yeah, it is.
I think because it does hit home if you're a part of any indie film community. This will probably feel like a story well, and you guys will just have to hang on and wait to hear what we're talking about there. But
because you might get called out. You know, it is what it is. You could get called out, but that's okay. That's why we do the culture check. Right?
Yeah.
Checking in on culture, but it's also checking people, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, it's not personal. Like the thing is we would say it not to have an like a bombastic moment on the podcast where we're stirring things up, but really just to say, what can we all learn from this and how do we get through it, together? One thing I told an indie creative this week was they were thanking me for something. And I was like, all I want to do is see all of us win. Like, you don't have to thank me. I'm literally here just trying to see, is it possible for everyone to win? Because I have this true belief that there's abundance. There's like overflowing abundance. There is enough for everybody. But because we weren't raised with an abundant heart and an abundant mindset, we think we have to kill someone else to get where we're going. We think we have to knock the other hyena off the carcass to get our feed, sort of thing. And it's just, we're human beings. We're special. We don't have to do that stuff. We found a new way. Like, human beings, in the words of Joseph Campbell, are the storytelling animal. And because we can tell stories, because we can imagine things that don't exist and then will them into existence, that makes us a lot different. And I really think that given the right condition, all these creatives can get where they want to go together. Yeah. And the world's already an insatiable place. It's a place that never tires of new content.
Right. But I was going to say, those are basic principles I think that we've had, for a long time. I think it's not just as a company, not as podcast hosts, but as people, right? It's like, how can we create not a win-win? Because you and I both know that there's never only two people in the equation, right? It's a win-win-win-win, right? The idea is that everybody in the conversation comes out on top, right? Like you said, we don't need to cannibalize each other to get to where we want to go. So I think that's great. All right, let's get into some streaming talk, man. Subscription talk. I think it's beyond streaming, but we talk about film here, so that's the focus that we have. But let's talk about it.
So I'll start by saying I am an abuser of streaming services.
Okay,
I'm an abuser.
Let's talk about that. Contextualize that for us.
And I'm an abuser of all content services, and I need to cut it out. And I think we are going to dig into it and really look at it, just like this Wall Street Journal report has suggested other people are doing. Because unlike most people that have a lot of streaming services, we haven't cut off our cable. So I've got Xfinity,
got it,
cable, internet and phone, and security. So I've got a pretty significant Comcast bill or Xfinity bill every month. And then we have all these subscriptions that tend to pile up. And here's how it happens. You sign up with a trial, or for me, I have 6 people on my account, like my phone account.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to subscribe to things for 7 days and they forget.
Yep.
And then they watch a show and they're like, well, let me just watch it till this show is over. And sometimes it can slip through the cracks. And so I've used Apple TV. Roku's fine too, so I'm not picking sides here, but I just happen to use Apple TV. It works great with my phone.
Yep.
But I mean, just off the top of my head, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO, Showtime, let's see
Paramount
here.
Plus.
Paramount Plus I canceled, but then it came for free with my cell phone plan, so I added it back. But that reminds me, Apple TV Plus, which I'm not sure I've been charged for yet, but it's coming, and I have it. Peacock is there. I just recently transitioned to the paid one. I was on the free one, and now I'm on the paid one.
We have YouTube TV.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah, we do that one, YouTube TV. And then what about HBOMax?
Yeah, I have HBOMax.
Yeah, you got that one. Disney Plus, Fubo TV,
Netflix. How are we leaving out Netflix? I have Netflix.
Yeah, we got to do Netflix last. That's good. I like the fact that you didn't put that one first. That one might be top of mind for everybody because it's so.
You know why? Because I don't watch it as much as I used to.
There you go. And I'm with you on that.
That's the honest truth. Now, and it's no
Yeah,
problem with Netflix.
I'm the same.
I'll marvel at their algorithms. They're brilliant. They have a new show called Beef.
Yeah, I saw that.
And when it was on Sally's profile, the cover art was 2 women. And when I switched to my profile, it was 2 men.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are so good. They're so good. They're so tasty. You know, like they're so delicious in how they do things. So it's, you know.
So, anyway. Okay. So Netflix has gone.
And I know I'm leaving some off. Mubi. Right. I have Mubi.
Mubi. Yeah, there you go. But so it hasn't gone to the bottom, but Netflix is somewhere in there. So let's talk about the services that you have. So you're an abuser. Okay. Now, does an abuser mean that you just have all of them and you only use the top 3, or you're an abuser and you're like, nah, man, I'm using every last service, you know, that comes available. And if it comes out, I'm getting it. Like where are you? Because I know that I'm not using all of the services that I have for me, but you did mention these other people, right? I have these other people in my house as well. And that's where the services come from. I could do without Peacock. I seriously could. I don't need that. My daughter wants that. You know what I'm saying? Like she asked me for that. So I was like, okay, we got Peacock. I could do without, I don't know if I could do without Disney Plus. I do watch that with my son, but that's really for him, right? Netflix right now, the only person who watches Netflix is my other daughter, right? So it's like each of them has their preference on a streaming service. So I got to get all of them. You know, so that's where I get stuck in those things. It's just everybody watches something different.
I have a different perspective. I have a little bit of that as well. You know, my kids are, for the most part, grown. So I have less of that. They just kind of borrow usernames and passwords right. to my chagrin. And, you know, before anybody judges me, I am not condoning this. You have to realize when you have a house full of women, you're not in control. Like you can say no, and then you're going to find out that somebody went to your account and gave you the password anyway. Gave them what they want. They're going to get what they want no matter what. Women get what they want no matter what. And you have to be like covered in iron wool as a man if you stop them, and then they don't want to be around you. So you got to figure out which hill you want to die on. I'm not dying on the damn streaming hill. So,
streaming hill, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the deal. I actually come at a perspective like I feel like it's my job. Like I need to be able to understand what's happening in content media, and I need to have my finger, you know, sort of on the pulse of what's good to keep my taste polished. But what's frustrating is before streaming, that could be accomplished in one cable subscription. And we've talked about this before. Yeah. Innovation is just unbundling. And then once everything's unbundled, then innovation is rebundling it. And I think we're in the process of rebundling right now, especially as subscriptions drop. If these keep dropping, you're going to see the bottom 20% get acquired, just period. M&A, acquisitions, and be part of something else. When you have Hulu, Disney, and ESPN, you really have one service. That money goes into one hole, right? And so I have all 3 of those services, but the problem is all your shows are spread out, right? So if you want to watch Succession, which we talked about earlier, episode 3, chef's kiss, by the way, highly recommend. That's on HBOMax. Now, I do watch more than that on HBOMax, but that's a show that everybody watches that they might get a subscription just to watch that show. Right?
Yep.
Then on Showtime, you might have Hard Knocks, or you might have The Chi, which used to be on. I think they've done their series finale or whatever. Now, I dropped Showtime recently because there wasn't anything on there I was watching, but I could get it back. But when Ray Donovan was on, it was the only, I literally paid $11 a month to watch Ray Donovan. That's how good I thought it was.
Well, that's the thing is that, you know, think about it though, $11 a month to watch something that you truly enjoy is nothing, right? You're going to spend more than that just going to the theater by yourself one time, right? I mean, it's just, that's worth it. So it makes sense.
Not me. but
right. One would pay that.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But here's the deal: is that not true though? I would love this audience to really think about this idea. Like think to yourself: all the shows you watch, they tend to be all over the place. Yellowstone is on Paramount Plus. I like to watch Dan Patrick sometimes in the morning while I'm making breakfast. Sports show that's on Peacock. I know a lot of people have Peacock just to watch reruns of The Office,
Right. Yep.
and Friends. Seinfeld's on Hulu.
Up, man.
Handmaid's Tale, Hulu, Dave, Hulu, The Mandalorian, Disney Plus. You have these shows, and what used to be a streamlined one price thing has now turned out to be something you paid more for than you ever expected. So for me, what started in 2007 as a Netflix account that I paid $7.99 for, that's how early I was on Netflix. This was like mailed to your, they didn't even have a streaming service. They just mailed you.
Yeah, it was like Redbox.
Yeah.
Yep.
Redbox has a streaming service, by the way. And so my streaming journey started at $7.99 a month. And I think that if you add up all the content that I get, including Xfinity, I don't know how I can be fair about this because I do need to like chop off the internet and like deduct the phone and security.
Yeah.
But let's just add those things. Let's just keep those things in to make the math simple. I think I probably pay $500 a month for entertainment.
Yeah, for all the
500,
and that's okay. So we were talking about subscriptions, and streaming is just a part of the subscriptions.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about $500 a month just for streaming, and we've got people paying for all sorts of subscriptions. I mean, it's just, and many of them they've forgotten about. Yep. That's the whole thing. I used to actually be the general manager of a gym, right? Fitness center, right? That's one of the things.
We can see that.
Get a person,
we see the pictorials.
We do.
We see the traps.
We can do it. But like, traps. That's the thing. You get people to sign up, right? It's like, when they're signed up, whether they come or not, that's not, you don't really care anymore, right? Because
once they're signed up,
they're just going to keep paying. It's just there. And there is this idea with streaming and many subscriptions is that there is a FOMO element, right? Or there's the idea that even if it's not a fear of missing out, it could also be that bandwagon effect where it's like, well, I don't want to get rid of HBOMax because one, there might be something on it that I need to watch. But two, when I'm in conversations with people and they're like, yeah, I got HBOMax. Well, you want to be like, yeah, I got HBOMax too, right? So you keep these subscriptions. And I think now it's become such a challenge and such an issue with people that there's services out there. What is it, like Truebill and Trim and Mint that are designed just to monitor your subscriptions and to say, hey, reminder, you're paying for all of this stuff, right? And it gives you quick and easy ways to just cancel those subscriptions. So I think people are now, like you said, I mean, the Wall Street Journal article is saying that people are canceling a lot. And I think that part of that is because these apps are helping people to control and manage all of those subscriptions. So we'll see. I think it's going to keep going down, as in
Mint Trim sounds like a great springtime cocktail.
There you go. Mint Trim.
Would you like a mint trim? Would you like a mint trim?
A trim mint?
I'll make one for you right now. Would you like that on the rocks?
There you go. Well, you should come up with that. You should do that.
I'll make one. Yeah. I'm a mixologist. I've gotten into mixology over the last decade.
Mixology.
I can put that together. Yeah. And then I'll share the recipe in our newsletter. How about that?
Boom. The trim.
Truebill's mint trim.
Trim mint. Mint trim. There you
mint
go.
Trim. It doesn't work the other way around. All right. Now we were talking about streaming. Let me say this too, because I want to be fair to the subject a little bit here before we jump on it and jump off of it. I also left out FX, which has Fleischman's Got a Problem, which is an amazing show. Everybody should watch it. Anyway, the other thing that we just have to acknowledge is that streaming came up between 2010 and 2020. What was happening between 2010 and 2020? We had runaway stocks. We had zero interest rate. So we were living in a time of great wealth and people could afford these things and they didn't think about it. There was money to be had. You had people that became millionaires off GameStop. You had people who became millionaires from Tesla stock and from Square, which is now Block. You had people that were Bitcoin millionaires. You had people that Bitcoin billionaires. Like a great example of this is this guy named Chamath Palihapitiya, who runs Social Capital. And he's also one of the co-hosts on a podcast, great podcast called All In. And he was mentioning to the other three, because he was in an argument, and one of the hosts, Jason Calacanis, shout out to Jason Calacanis, was saying that, hey, you need to back up here. You're the only person in this group that hasn't built anything. We're all founders. We've all built something. And until you build something, then you can talk to me. And then he says, but I'm the richest. Isn't that tilted? and it just goes to show that, like, he's the richest because it was better business to invest in things between 2010 and 2020 than it was to build things, which is ass backwards, by the way. And so people had all these streaming services, and now interest rates are ticking up, tick, 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 tick. And everything's a little harder. Everything costs a little bit more. Not to mention, you literally on the treadmill this morning, I saw Good Morning America telling you the 3 tips on how to prepare for a coming recession. And that's a show that goes out to half the country every morning.
Right.
They see that, they get scared. Okay, where do we need to cut back? Where's the fat at? Oh, are you really, really, really watching FX? Are you really watching old reruns of Homeland? You're going to have to find another way. We need to cut that. Yep. Let's cut what we can. So I just want to mention, I just want to be fair to the economy too.
Yeah. And I'll just say that that's all true. Inflation went up. People need to groceries are more expensive, right? You got to figure it out. You're going to eat, you're going to watch Netflix. But I think there's also, there was the myth.
And fear setting.
Yeah. But there was the myth that, you could cut the cord and save. Right. And I think it was in the beginning, we felt that was true. But then they started popping up all these. Yeah. Then you started popping up all these services because it felt like it was just Netflix at first. Right. And then it was just like pop, 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 pop. All these things started coming up. And now you had to buy the new thing and then buy the new thing and buy the new thing. And by the time you bought your 10th one, you're back exactly where you were before, with a $200, $300, $400, as you said, almost $500 bill for all these things that people didn't expect. So I think that now that they see all that stuff add up, they're like, yeah, what am I doing? Right. I can't be paying these $10 for these eggs and spending all this money on all these streaming services. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think this is the most we've mentioned eggs in any one episode.
Coming off the back of Easter. Hey,
it could be something to it.
Coincidence? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. But anyway, streaming services. The next thing we wanted to talk about was HBOMax. Right.
Yeah. Speaking of,
by May, I think they're already calling it Max, but by May 23rd, it's going to officially switch over to Max. And, maybe for me, Chris, I haven't done my due diligence on it yet, or maybe the word isn't out yet, but I don't get it. The only thing that I could even think of is that they're going to be, since they're merging some of that Discovery Plus content into this platform, then maybe the intention is to have the title or the umbrella called Max, and then you get HBO content within Max, and then you get Discovery Plus within Max, and then whatever else. Even the movies, like it's Warner Brothers Discovery, so there might be a section just of Warner Brothers movies, right? So it's like Disney Plus. You go there, you get Nat Geo, you get Star Wars, you get Marvel. It's kind of all underneath that umbrella. But the part that really gets me about this is that they changed it to Max when that name, that brand of HBO is so powerful. And to potentially put it under the umbrella of something called Max, I don't know, man. It seems like the wrong thing to do. But again, I don't know the details. I'm not in the house that Warner Brothers built, right? So I don't know why they're making such a decision. And maybe it's the right decision. It's going to take me a little while to get used to being like, hey, I'm watching Max.
One of the
That's
keywords
not my
you
neighbor's
said there.
dog.
That's right. By the way, if you have a dog, I know you don't, but for those out there that have a dog, and they'll know this, and then your dog is a pure breed, right? It's an Aryan.
Not right.
What you find out is that the names are super long and complex because you have to follow the dog down the family line. And so I have a dog named Clove, but her real full name is Clove Gypsy Basil Rain. And those dogs, I know it's funny, Nick.
I'm trying to figure this out. I'm looking at you. I'm like,
the names. I know the names are referring to the sire and the mother, and then I think the third name is referring to maybe the mother or sire of those two that sired. I can't remember, but the names is kind of like, and I think a lot of names are like that in the around the world. We just don't do it. But
you mean like
mother,
daughter?
Yeah. So you just end up with a progressively longer names as a dog. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Anyway.
No, I don't know what you mean. I've never
I'll show you.
Call their dog by multiple names is not a thing.
It's not worth it. It takes too much time, but all these dogs have 3 or 4 names, maybe 5. No,
whose dogs? I'm sorry. I'm not even going to ask the question. I'm not
any
going down.
Any
you're not going to
owner
suck
that has
me
a
in.
pure breed dog.
Not sucking me in, bro. We're not going down that tangent. I'm not doing it. So anyway,
I pulled you into a
HBOMax,
Max,
bro.
I will say this. I will say this about HBO Max. I'll say this about HBO Max. So I'm old enough to remember when, because the key word you said in the beginning was, now they want us to call it Max. Now they want us. We don't have to call it Max. They will find out when they do their split testing and when they do their market surveys, are people using this word? Because I am old enough to remember when we stopped being called black people, and we were supposed to be called African American. And it's been going on so long now that I'm sure even black people think that black people said we need to be called African American. It was not. It was a politician, essentially, that wants us to be called African American. It's more appropriate. But I don't have to call producer Elise a European American. Anyway, it's just an interesting thought. So what happened is that it landed on. It landed. I'm saying it landed for black people, so that we still use it. But had it not landed, it would have went away. I think we're still on the fence right now with Latinx, or Latinx, or whatever. They are doing surveys all the time to find out, is this name landing in the Hispanic community? And they're finding that it's not, but they're not just going to give up because they spent tons and tons of money to market this thing and to get people to say it on TV. That's how it happens. People get paid.
Well,
first, so now
we'll see.
So now they've changed to Max, and they want to see, are we going to call it Max? And then, if so, do they have a secondary product coming? But here's what I will say, all joking aside, is that the CEO of Discovery, David Zaslav, is considered a brilliant guy. For all intents and purposes, he has built a company from the ground up that is very successful. And unlike a lot of the content companies that have been around for decades, which always are looking for, that always run up profits and then have a handful of bad investments and quickly get into debt and need to be purchased. And it happens all the time. And I would recommend anyone to read the Who is David or Who is Ovitz? Is that the name of the book?
Michael Ovitz.
Yeah, Who is Michael Ovitz?
Yep.
I said David. I had David on my mind. I would tell everybody, in film to read who is Michael Ovitz. And you'll just see how much M&A, merger and acquisition activity goes on and how it actually happens and starts. So, yeah, I mean, if he's doing it, there is a piece of, like, there is a degree of faith that we should have that he has a grand plan that's long-term and not short-term thinking based, because he just hasn't ever done that in his career.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
there's been a lot of change. That's for sure.
Right. I'm not in the house that they built. Right. So again, I'm sure they've got a grand design. I'm sure of it, but it's just crazy. So not only that they took the HBO part off of it, but what other streaming service, and you can let me know if there is one, because I could just be, ignorant to it. What other streaming service has like a person or a dog's name as the name of the service? Like, it's Max. Like, I'm watching Max. I'm watching a person. Like, it sounds like I'm watching, a living being. I just watched this on Max last night. It's just weird, but I'll get used to it. And I'm sure HBO will be a subset of Max. So you'll still be able to say, I watched this on HBO, right? Discovery Plus. They're going to find out, are we going to say that? And I'm still going to say Discovery Plus, because that's what you watch, right? I think that might be what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if you ask me, what did you watch Succession on? What did you watch John Oliver on? I'll say, oh, HBO. Or I might say HBOMax. And it might take me a while to adjust to Max, but trust me, they're going to have their emails out, their surveys out. They're going to be coming to see, hey, how do we like that change? Is this working? Or it could end up being like a website, like a desktop website, where it's like Max powered by HBO. It's just like
HBO
dumb
Discovery.
Stuff. Playing with us, to play with us. I don't know.
But they did keep the little thing that's inside of the O, right, on HBO. They kept that in the center of the A on Max.
What's in that?
The circle. The filled in circle. That's on the logo for HBO.
Okay. Yeah.
That's now still in the center of Max. So like, you still know that that's HBO, or at least it houses HBO.
So yeah, so they're keeping some brand integrity by keeping the font, basically.
Exactly. And that exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, as guys that do branding and marketing, I think there are some norms you expect. I mean, depending on your product, that kind of dictates a little bit when you change your logo and how you change it, and when you change your branding and marketing approach and how you change it, and then also your revenues. There's been a wide variety of Coke cans to come out since the sort of introduction of Coke as a product. And there's a few websites out there that I think that like show every single iteration of Coke can up to present day.
And bottles.
But what's remained is the script font of Coca-Cola, and that'll never change because it's classic, and they have incredible revenues. And the only time they'll change it is if their revenues drop. What you'll notice a lot of times with apps on your phone, you'll look at your phone one day and the app will change. You'll be like, "Where's that app?" Oh, they changed their branding. Apps have to do that all the time, and especially on iPhones, because they're giving up 30% of their profit to Apple. On a regular basis. So it eats into their margin. You have to have an incredibly viral app to survive in the App Store. And so you'll need to do something to sort of engender new and motivate new users, new subscribers, whatever it may be that you're selling. And so you'll see a brand change with apps happen once every year or two. But if you typically have a legacy brand, or you're trying to build a legacy brand, you don't make changes to your core branding ever. It's your brand. You live with it. It's how people recognize you. Hermes is never changing that font. They're never changing the graphic they have around those words, and for good reason, and rightfully so. You have to know that a brand is about consistently showing someone the same thing over and over an extended period of time, until they learned it's like a song you hate, and then the radio keeps playing it, and now it's in your brain.
Right.
And then in 20 years you hear it and you catch nostalgia, even though at the time you didn't like the song.
The symbol has meaning. That's the main thing. The symbol has meaning. Yeah.
And so to your point, Nick, this is a big move in the sense that they're disrupting a little bit of what we've always known and what we've associated and affiliated with high quality. But also, to your point, they didn't change the font. So our brain's still going to trigger and say, oh, that's HBO.
Right. Yep. And it's going to be probably, like I said, it's going to be underneath the Max umbrella. So it'll end up being fine. It's just very interesting. I'll just say that. So anyway.
It is. We also had interesting conversation with Vanzel Burke, who runs Burke Management, talent management in Los Angeles. And, he's worked with Todd Bridges and Darius McCrary, I think Christopher Nolan, and he's got a bunch of like people in his roster that are luminaries. And, he's the guy who did the movie Karen, if anybody wants to check it out. But we were talking to him and he said some really interesting things about, how he chooses to invest in films. And so if you're a filmmaker out there listening to this, I think this is an important part to pay close attention to. And I basically asked him, I said, what do you look for? Like, what is your top priority when you're making a investment decision? Is it cast? Is it the filmmakers, or what me and you, Nick, call filmmaker founders? Or is it the story? And he said, to me, it's story. And I've always said, and I think you've always backed me on this thing, that story is king. That's but right. I think what's interesting about that, well, there's a lot of things that are interesting about it. But I think what's interesting about it to me is that we also did the film investment series, which was this mashup of 52 different conversations I had with Jason McConnell, the writer. And we put them all together and had one episode. And in that series, which I think is really valuable to listen to, I think you guys can find it in our library and on our YouTube page. I think our YouTube page has it sort of like front and center where you can just easily find it and play it. It's a film investment series. And I'm a big believer in looking hard and long at the filmmaker founders. Like, I want to know, what type of person am I wiring this money to? Are they the type of filmmakers who just want to make a movie and find some, frankly, fool to to pay them to make it? Are they the kind of filmmaker that won't take a fee until their investors are paid back? Are they the type of filmmaker who is delusional? We've worked with filmmakers who, even though they didn't have the right structure financially and didn't have the branding and marketing structure from the beginning in place, they still had an expectation that they were going to have a multi-million-dollar film, like profit end, gross end, right, off of a micro budget investment. And you can have all these different types. And as an investor, I think you want to know, like, before you place your money down, because you need to be with a type of filmmaker who's really passionate about being successful financially, and not everybody wants to do that. Some people just want to make a movie and satisfy their creative, and the money's secondary. Because to your point, like you said in the past, Nick, like a lot of times a filmmaker's like, well, my fee's baked into this budget, so I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Vanzel's right. I mean, you've already agreed, right? Story is king, right? Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. But for me, one of the reasons why it starts there is because that's how you know if the filmmaker has a story to tell. Mm-hmm. Right. And what I mean by that, I'm being very explicit when I say the filmmaker has a story to tell, not that the filmmaker wants to make a movie.
Assuming they've written it.
Right. And I think that's generally speaking, I think
you have a writer director.
Yeah. Exactly. They're coming with something that they've written, together.
Yeah.
But I really do believe that that's where it starts. It's like when you're really invested in the story, you're saying, wow, like these people they have something to say that I'm connecting with. That's the starting point. And then you get into what you just mentioned, which is, okay, now who are these people? And that gets back to some of our core principles around looking at who the filmmakers are, right? It's the whys, right? Why you? Right? Why do you have to tell this story, right? Why you? Why this story? Why now?
Yep.
And then why me?
Why us? Yeah. Why
right? As an investor, right? Exactly. Why us? Why would you pick us to be part of this story? And that why us, of course, is super important. Back to some conversations again that you and I have had around this, is that as an investor, especially with us, it's like, we're going to be there with you, right? We're almost joining this little family here, right? We're going to be in for the long haul. At least that's our thinking. So if the why you is just because you want our money, then that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. Because that doesn't say you want us, right? You can get money anywhere. Right. So why us? So, but again, I think it all starts with, I read that story. It connects with me. Now I want to know about these filmmakers, ask the why questions. If those why questions are connected, like I'm connecting with that, then we got something here. Right. Then you get into the other things like cast, and, you see an opportunity to make something great. But go ahead.
No, that was all perfect. And it's got me, you have to be careful because I get passionate about this subject.
Of course.
You gotta be careful about what you say, because there are filmmakers out there who actually hate their investors on a fundamental level. They don't actually hate them as people. They reach out to them. Those people give them money, and they're like, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of you and for you. And like, I couldn't have done this without you. But from a lifestyle and principle standpoint, and like what they believe what each side believes they stand for, they hate each other. They would never be in the same place. I've just met a lot of filmmakers who vehemently dislike people in business, who tend to be
got it.
your investors.
You mean it's not they don't right? They don't hate the investors, but it's like
they hate what they're about.
Internal struggle, right? I'm an artist. They're in business. They're yeah.
And they've almost been taught that by Sesame Street or something. I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's starting.
Sesame Street.
Shout out to Denise Green.
These are the people in our neighborhood, bro. Like in our neighborhood. This is Sesame Street is.
Yeah, I don't know which one it is, but I tell you what, it seems like it starts young, and or maybe when you're a teenager and you get riled up and you're like, I'm pumping my fist against the man. Well, who's the man? Right. The man is whoever has money. But it turns out that's who you need to make your film, and so you have to try to overcome that. And I think part of that is, well, look, I'm going to quietly hate you, but I'm going to love you while I'm pitching my movie to you. And then
it's interesting.
And then joke's on you. We made our thing, and you'll be fine because you have lots of money, so you're fine.
Oh well, that's a whole different story right there, right? With the you'll be fine. And I think that's where you and I are, again, just huge proponents of speaking to potential investors, potential executive producers, and saying that you need to be part of it, like be part of the team, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like the ivory tower thing, like we talked about, we're not ivory tower EPs because we want to be part of this. Like there's no way that you're just going to make your money as a director, a producer, a writer, or whatever, and then bounce at the end. Right. It's not going to take me for a ride. Like that's not cool. So I think that's what we always tell investors or potential investors is be wary of that type of behavior. Everyone has to be equally invested, whether it's time, energy, whatever, in making everyone successful.
It comes back down to the why me, that fourth why. Yep. Because a good why me, at least in my opinion for myself, is that maybe you've seen some of the work I've put out there. Maybe you know that I'm a musician. Maybe you know that I've been a storyteller my entire life. Maybe you've seen some of the creative I've put out in the world and you enjoy that and you think, the story you're telling will touch me in some way, or something about my life that fits, and that you will invite me in to that creative process versus saying, instead of placing my entire value to you as a number I can put on a piece of paper, as a check to you, or as a wire to you, like, that's a low feeling. Actually, I'll just say it. Like, it's a very low feeling to find out, like, okay, I have to say no to this. So grateful you came to me and thought of me, but this story isn't there, for example. And then then you might never hear from them again. And they're done with you. And then you find out, oh, my value to you is just the number I could put down on this check, or like the money I could wire to you. Like, you actually don't think I have a creative bone in my body. Like, you think I'm in film because I want to see movie stars.
Right.
And it's just so discouraging. And by the way, you mentioned cast. I think also what's interesting and funny is that for lay people who are just getting into film, I feel like they're always taught right away that cast is the most important thing. And that if you want to make a lot of money, you got to have a great cast. Like, that's the main thing that a filmmaker seems to focus on. And what Vanzel's saying is, look, no, it's story. And I will tell you that, like, 2% of stories are great. And the majority sits in the middle. Like, there's there's polls. There's like 10% are so bad that we don't, like, I don't know why you decided to do this. Like, who's gassing you? You're like the William Hung screenwriters.
or they're just getting started in their career and they need to learn some things.
But
right?
even for just getting started, like, how are you, like, this is really bad. Right.
Right.
And then there's the really, really great, like, and we talked about this last week, like, when you know something, or the last Indie Talk, when you know something is great, you don't have to ask anybody. They find you. Like, nobody walks past a gold brick on the ground. They just don't. Like, if you see a gold brick on the ground, you look around. You're trying to figure out, if I go down and grab this, is a landmine going to explode?
Right.
Because I just can't make sense of this gold bar that no one's found.
But you know it's value when you see it.
But you know it's value. And so when you have a project that's hot and it's fire, everybody's going to be rushing after you and wanting to invest in it, wanting to be a part of it, wanting to do what they do best to help you get where you're going.
Right.
And I've never seen an example of a super talented person or project that wasn't like that. Like, it gets buzz fast and you realize it has a lot of value quick. So if you're a filmmaker and you find yourself struggling to get financing, that's not a coincidence. Go back to your premises, like, go back to your basis and say, do I have a great story?
Yeah.
I might not have a great story because I'm not getting anyone's interest. If you're a songwriter and your friends won't play your song, your mama won't play your song, go back to your premises and say, did I make a sonically good song? And it can go with any type of art, painting, everything. And I think that's just such a valuable, lesson to learn, and just goes to show why story is king. Even though cast is important and the filmmaker founders are important, I think when you have a great story, you'll end up with a great cast and you'll end up with a great filmmaker. If you're separate from the filmmaker, if you're a writer and not the filmmaker itself.
Yeah.
So,
I'll add one more thing to that equation, which is, and again, this is one of those kind of founding principles for us as well, that comes along with that principle of no mercenaries, is that, we, and I think many investors who are successful and producers who are successful, are really into long-term games with long-term players.
Yep.
Right. So that's another part of the equation. Like you mentioned songwriting, but even, just in filmmaking itself, I want to know that there's something else, right? There's another film, like that this is what you want to be. This is what you want to do. And you've got more in the pipeline. Because like you said, filmmaker founders, you don't just do the one thing and walk away, right? This is something you're going to do forever. That's the idea. I'm investing in you, not just in this one film. So if you're working with someone who's going somewhere, who's got something else to do once this project is done, then you have a little bit more confidence in investing in them, right? Because you're going to work together to make sure you get your return on investment, whatever that is, so that you can do it again together. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the idea. We're in this together for the long run. So if you have a filmmaker that comes to you that seems like they're so invested in that one project, that's why it gets difficult when someone says, to us at least, I've been working on this for the past 10 years.
It's like,
it's tough because it's like, well, is there nothing else?
Yeah.
What happens after this? Right? Is it going to take let's say this one thing is successful, or let's say moderately successful. Is that it for you? I mean, you're burnt out after 10 years, or is it going to take another 10 years to get your next project done? Right.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with someone who's like, I got this thing is hot. I've been working on it for maybe the past 2 years, but I've also got these other 2 or 3 things that once this is done, I would love to pursue these other things, right? Long-term games with long-term players. So I just add that in there as well from the filmmaker founder perspective that, investors should, and many successful ones do, look for those folks who have a second, third, fourth project in the pipeline.
Yeah. It's the old screenwriting adage. What do you do when you finish your screenplay? Write another one.
Write another one.
and just keep going. That's the idea.
Yep.
Can you bless us with the sound for culture check, since we don't have this, as like a button I can press yet, and just have I just want to press a button and have culture check come out of your mouth. I'm going to
do it because I love it. I love it.
You give me
great.
Give me
that's the thing. I don't want
sound.
I don't want you to buttonize me, man, to the point that you don't need me in your life anymore. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't need that.
I want you to say culture check so I can feed it into our AI, and then I can just type anything I want and it'll sound in your voice. And completely replace you on this podcast.
Replace me. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to give that up, bro, because I enjoy being able to sit here across from you, either in person or virtually, and say culture check. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're about to do. We're about to go into the culture check, which is a great opportunity for us. And I thought that you had a great one for this week. Just to let folks know that I had actually thought about, a different one, which I'm not going to go into, but this whole J.K. Rowling thing, in HBO or HBOMax or Max, whatever, picking up that Harry Potter series and doing that. And it's getting a bunch of blowback because of that. But I think there's time for that conversation. That's definitely not over. But, Chris, you had mentioned some things that's some
ongoing
behaviors.
Saga.
Oh, it is. That's what I'm saying. It's never ending, and we'll hear about it again. We'll have an opportunity to talk about it. But you had mentioned something to me that I thought was really interesting, that really hits home with our community directly, right? So that's studio stuff, that's HBO, that's J.K. Rowling, that's multi-million-dollar stuff. I want to talk to our audience about some things that we see, some things that we're feeling, some sentiment that we're getting in the indie community. So I'll pitch it back to you just to, you can tell us what you were feeling or what you kind of sensed was going on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an unspoken rule, and rule might be the wrong word, but it's an unspoken sort of nuanced understanding that we have when you're part of an indie film community, that if someone is making a movie in town and they ask you to be a part of it, to ask you to act in it, ask you to produce, ask you to invest, whatever it is, that you're not really supposed to give a lot of pushback to it. Like, go do your thing, go get a SAG job if you need to get a SAG job, go do your IATSE job if you want to do, there are other opportunities, but we're making a hometown movie and we need you to, pitch in and, not question the script, not question the, financial structure of the deal, not question the locations and how it's all being put together, not question, is the film bonded? Is it safe? Not question, is it going to make money? Just come and help out. We're all in this together. And there's a piece of that I genuinely understand. And even I have said on panels, festivals, here on this podcast, there is a time to even work for free. Now, I'm not talking about working for free here, But there's even a time to work for free to get your name out there and start working with a crew, so you don't end up being someone's mercenary or whatever. But I think also when it gets to a place where you don't feel secure in your place in the community, if you say no, it goes too far. And if I'm an actor, I should be able to look at a character and say, grateful for the opportunity, thank you, but I just don't think this is right for me, without having to have the fear in the back of your head that, oh, this is a small community and, I'm going to get sort of cast off and out of these friend groups or out of this circle because I'm viewed as somebody who's actually trying to have a great career, that actually is trying to curate their career and the work they do, versus just saying yes to everything that comes to you, like a lot of indie creators, indie actors, indie filmmakers do, where like it's always a yes, because it's a project that's happening in town with people that are your friends that you've had beers with. So it's just, you don't want to be kicked off the island, but you also want to be cognizant of the jobs you're taking. It's a really tough spot to be in, frankly.
It is. And I think, like you mentioned, it's a spot that you shouldn't have to be in, right? No filmmaker should be putting you in that position. People shouldn't be talking behind your back, right? If you didn't select that, to take that part or whatever the case is, be a part of their project. That's messed up. And I think that, as I mentioned before, Culture Check is an opportunity for us to check in on culture, but it's also an opportunity for us to check people, right, on their behaviors, right? That's checking our community and saying, hey, are you acting like this? Like, are you one of these people that's actually hurting your own community by talking about people? Just because they didn't pick you, right, doesn't mean they don't like you, or doesn't mean that they're, not indie enough, or whatever the case is. You have to remember that, people are looking out for their careers as well. And, as you and I always talk about from a branding and marketing perspective, they're out for their brand, right? Yep. So a certain character that you've asked them to play may not be on brand for them. Right. That just might not be the type of thing that they're doing. So you got to be respectful of that, and don't dog people for not being a part of your project. You should be celebrating the fact that they know who they are and what they want. And maybe another time, the part that you have for them will work out. Right. Like, it's all good. It's just, like you said, it's a small community. If people keep making stuff, at some point your paths will cross again. It's okay.
Yeah, and it comes back to what I said at the beginning. Like, there's abundance, and we can all do something and make it, with what's currently out there. And the reason I bring that up is because there's this insidious little tone and this insidious little purpose behind, a reason behind all this, which is, if I can get you to do the indie walk with me, and then the films do well, then I will be the one that's higher up on the rung in the ladder and moving forward faster. And so there's a weird hierarchy and power structure at play, where it's like certain investors get pushed out of certain projects. Interesting. Certain actors or producers get sort of shamed into being part of a project they don't think is very good. But at the end of the day, the people who made the filmmaker, the writer, ends up getting to say, hey, I made this movie in town. I'm the one driving, indie film in this community. And they end up a rung more powerful. And you get the sense that's part of it too. And there's this sort of warrior mentality, which look, you need that to succeed if you have a big dream. I get it. But the downside of that mentality is like, you're either with me or against me. You're
Yeah,
riding
and
with me,
that doesn't work.
or you're not.
Yeah, and that doesn't work in the indie community. Because again, like you mentioned, it's a small community, right? So as soon as there's that sentiment, right? So if I'm an actor and I feel like that's how you feel about me, I've got my little side of the community. You've got your little side, and now we're fragmented. We're broken. Right? We're too small. I'm gonna go talk to all my people about how you treated me, or at least my perception of you. So again, it just does a disservice, all around, because we're too small to be hating on each other for any reason, right? It's like,
And
even a film
it's subtle.
Yeah, but even a film that is that you didn't like, let's to kind of turn it a little bit to just indie community in general and say, hey, there's a film that these guys made that, maybe I didn't, think it was the best, right? Like, it just wasn't up to my standard, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to say that out loud, right?
Yeah.
You might be able to, the idea, I think, in the smaller community, and this is something that I would say that, you've taught me even more, is that, if you look hard enough, if you look at it, I mean, you're going to see some beauty in it, right? And it's like, focus on that, especially first, right? To say, hey, do more of that. Like, that was good. That aspect of it was great. Yeah, were there some foibles here and there? Were there some lighting issues? Maybe there's some sound. Maybe the acting wasn't up to par. But you know what? You guys did a really great job at this thing, right? And I think if you lead with that, that conversation in the community, right? You're always leading with that positive. Then I think it just brings everybody up, and it opens the door for the conversation about what didn't work, right? And then it's less about critiquing people, and it's just offering advice. So that's just another, piece of this small community feel that we've got here.
Exactly, and point taken. And it's crazy because if everybody says yes, whether through shame or not, and you get on set and you have a great time and you have fun, it was all worth it. What was the big problem? What's the big deal? But at the same time, we have to keep the same energy the other direction and say, as a creative, I'm looking for a new challenge. I'm looking to do something that stretches my ability to the point in which I don't know if I can actually do it. Like, one of the things you taught me is how to work out in a way in which you're not sure you're going to get through your workout.
Yep.
And if you think you can get through it when you walk in, then obviously you left something on the table. Like, right. If you're certain you're going to get through it, like, you should leave a little broken. And that's daunting to people. It's hard, but I think creatives actually feel that way. They want to go in and try to be broken. They want to try to go in and push the limits of their talent. And a lot of times, frankly, like, an indie project either is too far to the left, 3 degrees to the left, or the script plays it safe, or the project plays it safe, and the characters are the same character over and over. Like, I know a handful of actors in this indie community in Nashville that seem to somehow be playing the same character over and over and over again. It's like I know deep down they want to stretch. I know deep down they want a better part. I know deep down they want a better script. I know deep down they want to do something different. So, why is this happening? And then there's just the straight, like, power play stuff, like, and weird stuff. Like, I was having dinner with a filmmaker a month ago, and they were telling me that this person they've met 3 times. Every time they meet, that person reintroduces himself to them as if they've never met.
Right.
But this person's convinced that it's all power play. Like they feel like, okay, you're basically filibustering in a way. Like, you don't want to read my projects. You don't want to hear about my projects. So you pretend not to know me.
No, I see.
And that's crazy. So it's not like it's not like I'm in your face. It's not like you get into a fight on the street when we were kids or whatever. This is like high level chess mind games going on. This is Ouija board shit. You know what I mean? I think
it's just jacked up. That's all I got to say.
That's stuff that you have to put it into as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's messed up. That's one of those things like, I'm so good, I don't even have to spend time remembering who you are. That's
Yeah.
messed up. But yeah, the community is so small. I think to kind of wrap it all up, though, the community is small, and it doesn't do any of us a service to badmouth other people when they've made a decision for their own career. Right. That's what it comes back to. The person needs to make a decision. And we've had filmmakers tell us before that, especially actors, they're looking for the part that's going to get them another part. Right. I'm looking for the role that's going to get me another role. Right. So they're looking at growth, just like you mentioned. So if the part that you're asking them to play, you're asking them because you know that they can play it, that might not be what they want. They don't want safe. Right. They want the thing that is going to take them to the next level. So don't take offense, just understand that they're doing what's best for them.
Yeah, man. Spot on. And before we get out of here, I want to just thank a few people. I want to thank all the folks in the newsletter that have written me so many nice email and feedback on the sort of editorial, I guess, I put in the front of the newsletter. I typically don't do that. We don't do that in a newsletter, especially in the intro where we try to keep it pretty short. This was actually very long, but this Covenant shooting and the debate around what we should do next, obviously hit close to home for me. And I really hadn't heard anyone giving any solutions that started organically and permissionlessly, I should say. So all the solutions I'm hearing on TV, news, and in between people has to do with making one group do something or making another group do something. And so there are these opposing forces pushing against each other hard, and I'm not sure what you get from that except for gridlock, right? And I think in that process, we forget, in the process of fighting another side, we forget that we have a third option. And you don't need to look any further than probably your grandma, your grandma, your grandpa, by the way, if you have one out there, they figured it out. What did they figure out? They figured out that they don't have to worry about high prices for vegetables. They'll just grow it. They forget, they haven't forgotten the basics, the sovereignty, the foundational indigenous stuff, the stuff of I can put my hands in the soil and grow my food. I still have that ability. They haven't taken that right away from me. So you cannot trap me with high prices at the grocery store, for example. And I think the same thing is true with what I was talking about in this last newsletter, which you guys can subscribe to at bonsai.film/subscribe, is look, there are things we can do as long as we're willing to do what it says on Nick's shirt right now. Unity. And if we can unify and put the unity back in community, yes, again, I know it sounds corny, but if we can do that, then we don't need the permission of the government or some policy or some law to make the world a better place for us. We can make it a better place. So I was really nervous, really scared to say that and to put that out there like that, especially on a platform that I'm not the only person that works on this thing, So I'm by proxy putting everybody else out there, and the feedback has been tremendous. And some of the words you guys said to me was exactly what I needed to hear, just for feeling good in a stressful day and just for my self-esteem. So kudos. I appreciate it. And thank you, and keep reading. We'll keep putting out incredible content and getting better and better and better. And speaking of incredible content and getting better and better and better, you can follow that journey of ours at bonsai.film. So www.bonsai.film. You can also find us on social media. We're pretty much on every social media network that matters. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at _bonsai creative. You can search for me and Nick on Twitter just by typing in our names, Nick Bugs or Nicholas Bugs, Chris Barkley. You'll find us there. We're on TikTok, and we are definitely on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is just looking great. So super proud of the team for the way that the YouTube channel looks. Go there and enjoy and peruse, and definitely do subscribe and tell a friend. And as I mentioned before, our newsletter is at bonsai.film/subscribe. It's free, no pressure.
It's free and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. We got a lot of good input that comes from the community that we feed back to our audience. Right. I think that's the thing that it's really important to say is that, yes, some of this comes directly from us, things that we're interested in, things that we find, but we get stuff from the community as well that we want to share back out there in the world. So yeah, it's wonderful. We love doing it. And, we want more people to subscribe. So if you are subscribed, tell somebody else to subscribe, right?
Yep.
Let's, again, build a community. We're sharing. It's all about, this tiny little community that's actually really, really big.
Yeah. Yeah. At the bottom of every newsletter, there's exactly. There's a little button at the bottom of every newsletter that says forward, and you can click that and forward it to anybody you want. And we're working on ways to figure out how to incentivize that through a forthcoming Patreon page. So keep a lookout for that. Keep your ear to the ground on our Patreon page. I know people have been asking me about that for years. And yes, we are finally doing and have done a Patreon page. And if you've been a true fan subscriber, awesome. We will likely call you directly and ask you to move over to Patreon in the near future. So with that, Nick, do you have anything else?
Well, I got the one thing before I do the other thing, because I got to do the other thing before we close this thing out. This thing, a lot of times, it's like you said abundance so many times. I was like, abundance. Weird. Just it starts to sound weird. But yeah, I did want to mention, exactly, a bun dance. Right?
Yeah, a bun dance.
But I wanted to say that we still, support women in film and television. And if you have the opportunity to go, to bonsai.film, especially if you're going to the Make It podcast page, at the bottom of that page, we do have the link that you can donate to the Women in Film and Television 501c3 organization. So any donations that you provide to them, full tax deduction, and you continue to support independent film makers, creatives, not just even in the state of Tennessee, but, across the country who might be, participating in any of the Women in Film and Television programs. They're a great organization. And, like I said, we still support them very much. So please go out there and donate to them. But with that, Chris, I'll go ahead and drop this on them because, I love doing this. It gets me excited. This is part of, like you said, unity, right? Unity around everything that we're doing with the podcast, the community, the newsletter. You guys are going to hear, or you're going to read this in the newsletter as well, because this is, basically our principles that we're trying to aspire to and live by, which is be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again, man. This has been great, as usual.
As usual. Peace. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Take it easy.
You've been listening to the Make It podcast. To find more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook and LinkedIn by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative. In addition, you can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we're trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please visit www.bonsai.film/donate. Donations start at only $5 monthly. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step toward your film's financial success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore a variety of branding and marketing packages and so much more. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.